The Arkansas Legislature could take up the issue of Act 851 and data mining in the fiscal session. Here to talk about the local impact of that is an agricultural business owner, Jerry Lee Bogard. Hi, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Jenny. How are you?
I'm great. Really appreciate it. I know that there are many out there who are familiar with you, and you've been a long time Arkansas County resident. I recently heard you testify in committee. I believe that was last week.
Yes.
But if you would, just tell us a little bit about you there in Arkansas County.
Yeah, my name's Jerry Lee Bogard. I'm a lifelong resident of Arkansas County. I've spent about a third of my life working overseas in various agricultural related projects, but started my farming career in 1976 and still consider myself a farmer today, even though I don't actively plow the ground. Uh, own a part of a company that has a substantial farming interest and water interest in Arkansas and Jefferson County. So, and I have land that is adjacent to the crypto mine located just west of DeWitt. So that's how I got involved in all this when I received a call from Representative Jeremiah Moore, who's been a real strong asset for us as it relates to this whole issue around crypto mining and trying to understand all of the many what have now become many issues that started out just very narrowly focused around noise and some concerns about water pollution and landfill pollution, that sort of thing. But it's really once Pandora's box got open, it's really broadened out. So I've got a lot of experience dealing in international issues, developed projects in sub-Saharan West Africa and Southeast Asia, particularly on the island of Borneo. So I have sort of a broad view of the cultures as it relates to the clash, which is the American farming community and the small town Arkansas communities, as we run headlong into these now the digital age of investment in other things that just a short time ago were not even known to us here.
Yeah. This topic, I think, is so complex and, like you mentioned, multifaceted. Just for our viewers here who are still trying to wrap their heads around this, how would you explain data mining to our viewers in this topic?
Okay, so it started out 10 or 15, I guess 15 years ago as a computer novelty. I heard the Fed chairman from Minneapolis, Kashkarian, describe it as like a Beanie Baby phenomenon. Is what it started out as, where people solved math problems and they got tokens, and it launched out from there. The blockchain, the whole scenario of blockchain that has taken such a big part of the worldwide conversation is hard to understand. Where you solve a math problem and it produces a token, which that token has absolutely no value beyond what somebody attributes to it as a collector's piece, or in the case of countries on the watch list, sanctions list, Iran, China, North Korea, others, Russia. They use these tokens as a bartering tool to get around the sanctions compliance, especially where oil and arms are concerned. And it's valued in dollars, and people are willing to trade it in dollars. I think this morning the Bitcoin on the open was worth about $72,000 per Bitcoin. And once they are produced from a data crypto mining center, they call them data miners, but they're crypto miners. They're solving math problems, and every time they hit, they get a big reward, and that reward goes into an exchange like Binance that was recently fined 4 point some billion dollars, and the CEO of Binance is going to go to prison over not reporting where these monetizations have occurred properly here within the United States. And then once they go into that blockchain in that exchange, it becomes very difficult to trace. And so folks like Iran or Syria or pick one, It's
Yeah.
sort of ironic that all of these things came out that are in Arkansas today. Many of them came out of China. They were kicked out of China in 2022. So you have folks like Iran that our people in the FBI and Homeland Security tell us, just recently that this attack 6 months ago from Hamas on Israel was all financed with cryptocurrency, primarily Bitcoin, through Iran. And
Yeah.
so when we hear these things, then we have to ask ourselves the question, how could we possibly accept a foreign owned entity with encrypted software, algorithms that were developed and are proprietary, that we have absolutely no idea what data they gather? We know that they're located right next to the substations because they consume enormous amounts of energy, that ultimately lead up to a production of a token coin, like you went to a casino and stuck a dollar bill and a coin was, you want a coin inside that casino. It's worth some dollar currency. Outside the casino, you can't buy anything with it. But in this case, the people who are our enemies around the world use this as a bartering system to get around money laundering issues, so that they can finance these sorts of activities that take not only our allies' lives and treasure, but they take American lives. So that on that principle or that theory alone, we have to understand who these people are. What's the total nature of the capacity of the encrypted software that they use to mine these cryptocurrencies, and then from there, how do our government agencies monitor where this monetized crypto tokens, where does that output go and what's happening with it? And we certainly are not able to tax it. We don't have any controls there. All of these things have to be answered before I could be comfortable, regardless of who owned a crypto mine.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, talk to us about Arkansas County and the facility that opened up just adjacent to your property, and how that's affected your community.
Well, it's very nearby the community of DeWitt, which is located in the center of Arkansas County, and it's actually the Cove County seat. And the biggest concerns when we first heard about all this, back in the late summer and fall of 23, the biggest concern was the noise, because there was enough experience around the country to know that these things. We live in an environment in Arkansas where we have hot summers and we have cold winters, and everything in between. And so when you're locating 2,000 or 3,000 computers in what they call amp pods, and the temperature gets well above 150 degrees inside those amp boxes, even in 80 or 90 degree temperatures, what's going to happen when it's 100, 110? So they cool these things with fans. The fans are real noisy. And when I say real noisy, if you're living nearby these things, or you're trying to hunt, or you've got cattle, or you've got livestock or whatever, then it becomes a constant noise nuisance. Now that was the original concern. And then the issue of pollution. Okay, where's the water going to come from to cool these plants? Well, it's potable water. They're not looking for reservoir water that's 90 degrees in the summertime. They want aquifer water. And in Arkansas County, we are subject to and have been under a critical groundwater use designation now for decades. And we're on an unsustainable course to lose the precious water resources that we all depend upon for drinking water and for consumption. So why would we want to use that water in competition with not only our senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, but also the agricultural community, where we're trying to produce a crop, we have to irrigate it. And we're talking about food and fiber that's part of the national security of this country. And here we have these folks who come in. We don't know who they are. They refuse to meet with us. We've invited them several times to meet. They refuse to do it. And they've sued us preemptively. And then on top of all that, have subpoenaed private citizens who are not even a part of the lawsuits, seeking our information, our financial and phone records. And I mean, it's really been an interesting thing to and I've been subpoenaed twice, by the way. It's a really interesting proposition to see where we are today in this country.
Well, talk to us about that. When we were talking on the phone before this interview, and you mentioned, and I heard that in testimony, and I couldn't believe that, and it reminded me of a conversation and some interviews that Tucker Carlson has done about the state of the country and how just private citizens are being targeted. I've heard RFK mention that if private citizens cannot have freedom of speech, we don't have a free country at all. What does it say to you that as a private citizen with just speaking out against cryptocurrency, the data mining facility in your county, you're being targeted, you're being subpoenaed? What message does that send to you?
Well, it begs another question: what's next? If this can be allowed to happen in this country, where private citizens who have just exercised their right of free speech, haven't done anything to physically impede or cause these folks not to be able to operate. We've simply spoken out about our legitimate concerns, all of which have already been stated by various federal and state law enforcement agencies and people who are in charge of the national security of this country. We've not said anything that hadn't already been spoken. And so we find ourselves under subpoena. We've had to hire a lawyer. Now we've filed motions to quash those subpoenas. I don't think it's any business of theirs how many pork butts I bought in a fundraiser at $25 a piece to to help fund the creation of signs that says no to crypto in Arkansas County. That just seems absurd to me. It's a huge intrusion on the right to not only free speech, but the right to peaceful assembly. We've invited these folks to come to every one of our meetings. We've invited them to have discourse with us, and all they've done is chosen to sue and then subpoena. I've got to be in federal court tomorrow at noon to address the whole issue of the language surrounding the settlement of a lawsuit between Arkansas County and Jones Digital, because in that settlement language, we feel like it impugns, or it could possibly impugn, not only my ability, but private citizens' ability to even have conversations with publicly elected officials. Can you imagine in this country? And so we're going to be there, spending our money and our time standing up for what we believe are the rights of individuals to continue to exercise our free speech.
Talk to us about, you mentioned this federal court case and a federal hearing where the judge mentioned that the only thing above Act 851 are federal statutes, and everything below 851, that basically these companies are essentially granted sovereign immunity. Here on American soil, these companies act as if they have sovereign immunity. And when I've said that to people, they say, who gave them that and how did that happen? What's your answer?
My answer is this has already been demonstrated. It's not speculation. The ADEQ, which is in charge of every business who above a certain size or demographic has to comply with things like wastewater usage. They have to comply with, the things that are environmentally sound in this state for any business. I don't care who you are. And then all of a sudden, these folks come in here. They don't comply with anything. They don't tell the truth on the original application as to the size of it. They don't want to meet with anybody who opposes them. And when you do oppose them, they do exactly what they did this time. They sued Arkansas County because Arkansas County came in after the cutoff date that would have allowed them to establish some other decibel level that would have been acceptable to people in the county. And so the county got sued. And now because the county lost the first round in federal court and chose not to go any further and settled it, the county, the taxpayers are out, six figures, which is coming out of everybody's pocket at some point in time because these folks operate. Now, go back and remember what I said now. They were cited for more than one violation by the ADEQ with fines that were several $1,000s a day if you fail to comply. And I promise you, an ordinary citizen would have to comply. We don't know what the outcome of that is today. We haven't heard back from ADEQ, and these folks have carried right on as if they were in full compliance all along. They recently dug a well out there. They got to have a source to cool their plant. I understand that. The city of DeWitt didn't have the capacity to do it. The regional rural water district didn't have the capacity to do it, so they dug a well. Okay, I understand all that, but what is that well? Is that a 6-inch submersible well? Because if it is, then it's a 300 to 500 gallon well. And if you look at those ant pods, how are you going to push 300 to 500 gallons a minute of water through there? It's like trying to fill up a bathtub with a fire hose. And so where is the plan to deal with your wastewater? Because all of that water drains right into a little ditch right behind their plant, and that water runs right into LeGroux Bow, which then runs right into the National Wildlife Refuge, which Arkansas County and the surrounding counties depend upon that refuge as a haven for wildlife and waterfowl, the economic benefit of which is in the tens of millions. And so where is the pollution factor? Where is the plan? Where is the authority that regulates this sort of stuff under any other circumstances? That's the evidence of the fact that they've just thumbed their nose at it, and they're operating as if they were a sovereign entity, and they will sue you and they will subpoena you if you challenge that.
Talk to us.
What legislator in their right mind would knowingly grant that sort of privilege to any industry, regardless of who owns you, but certainly if you're proven to be owned by a foreign entity that's on a watch list that is forbidden to do business here, period? How can that stand? How can that be? Go ahead.
Well, that's what I wanted you to touch on. I know that the AG, that you were waiting to hear back about that exact thing. Talk to us more about that.
Well, we met with Attorney General Griffin. A number of citizens from Arkansas County did that are on this. We call ourselves a committee of folks against Arkansas County citizens against crypto mining. But we're just a bunch of average citizens here trying to live and do what we've always done. We called for and were granted a meeting with AG Griffin. We appreciated that. He was very cordial. Took up a lot of his time, a little over an hour. And in his defense, he's not released the information because he launched an investigation as to trying to figure out who these folks really are, because Act 636 prohibits Chinese owned or foreign owned under a sanctions list from operating on agricultural land in Arkansas. And this crypto mine was cited right out of a soybean field last fall. So naturally we're awaiting that outcome. He's been called upon to investigate a lot of other things, and he's got his plate full, and he doesn't have a whole lot of folks for the task at hand. But certainly, when we hear from him, and we expect that our findings that we've come across already will be similar in nature, and if that proves to be the case, then all of this that has happened will be for what? Because Act 636 prohibits that. They'll have to divest themselves if in fact they prove to be owned by foreign ownership.
Did you and your committee do your own investigation? And if so, what did that ownership, that maze, lead to?
Well, we expressed this right off the bat to our friend Tim Griffin, that our investigation indicated that it was owned by the Shanghai city government of China, 47%, I believe is what it was. 23 with unnamed Chinese individuals and the balance of it by the People's Republic of China. That's what our initial, search engine search on the internet showed us. It's a complicated web of things that'll take you to New York and California and a lot of places in between where there's a maze of LLCs that have been created, but ultimately that's where it ends up. And when we expressed ourselves to Tim Griffin, he could neither confirm nor deny at that point. They were not ready. This is a little over a month ago, and they weren't ready to release their findings. So we're all anxious to hear what that is.
The longer this goes on, does it raise more questions for you and the residents there in Arkansas County?
Absolutely. The more that is revealed at the federal level, like this encrypted software and the algorithms, where you have this massive computing power that's consuming. Today, it was we read an article, I think it was put out by Reuters, where 2% of the nation's total energy consumption is being consumed by crypto mining. Now they haven't been here very long.
Yeah.
And so if you're in Arkansas County and you're a farmer and you have an electric relift pump or you have an electric motor driven well to irrigate your crop, and you have this new entity coming in here called a crypto mine, and their energy consumption is equal to or greater than the town adjacent to you or the total private population that exists here that's serviced by the electrical grid, and we have 3,800 electric motors sited around the impacted area to irrigate 310,000 acres of cropland. And we already experience problems in the peak summer months when the temperature is so high. And if you single phase one of these electric motors, you'll burn it up. And if you burn it up, what happens? Well, you can't irrigate your crop.
Yeah.
So what happens when the demand on this grid comes along and you shut down X number of electric motors because they've been burned up in a brownout in a single phase, and you have this. We have a tens of billions of dollars of investment in land and upstream downstream agriculture in Arkansas County, a very mature infrastructure, and we're all running off tight margins. So what happens? We're not in 2014 now. We're in 2024, meaning that you're not assured that just because you burn a motor up and you have insurance that'll cover it, you're not assured that you're going to go to town or you're going to call somebody and they're going to have what you need to replace that. So what happens if you're down? You don't have to lose a whole crop, Jenny. All you have to do is lose 5% or lose a percentage of that crop because you couldn't irrigate it timely. One bushel loss beyond what break even is, and you jeopardize the viability of that operation going forward, which may be a family farm that's multi-generational, that's been the fabric and the food security of not only this country, but countries around the world that depend on us. And what for? What would you risk that for? A crypto mine for which there are no job production? There's absolutely nothing that relates to national security of this country in a positive way that you can attribute to a crypto mine. It's all negative. These folks are competing with the natural resources of this state, with every citizen here, from fixed income seniors to farmers who are raising food and fiber for this country. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous that you would grant somebody like this sovereign status where they can't even be regulated or inquired about without being threatened with legal action against you. It's insane.
This is at Conduit definitely contrary to our normal opinion, but I think that we can all agree that there are certain resources that we all share. It is not right for one company to come in and simply monopolize and suck the utilities off from a community. And like you said, there are regulatory procedures and things in place already for legitimate businesses to follow. And then for things for counties, there's nothing more local than county officials to be able to regulate their businesses. And right now their hands are tied with Act
This is the reason
851.
why we elect them, is so that we can talk to them. They are the link to the state government. The state government is the link to the federal government. This system has worked very well in this country since our founding fathers had
Right.
had what I believe was a divine vision to create the constitutional rights of people to be able to express free speech and the right to assemble. This is how we have operated, and this is how we should continue to be able to operate. And we're business people. I don't want you to get the impression that we're anti-bit. We're not.
We,
We're for
too.
business. But just like this whole issue of the water, we have a comprehensive statute in the state of Arkansas called the Arkansas Water Plan.
Yeah.
And in that, you have an order of priority users of water. Number one is metro municipal. Number two is agriculture. Number three is industry. And number four is everyone else. Well, clearly these folks are not metro municipal. They're not agriculture. They are industrial mining is what they're doing. They're using computer energy driven computer power to mine math problems to get rewarded. That's what it is. And so right off the bat, you already have laws in place that should give the state of Arkansas every opportunity to go in there and use the regulatory powers that they were granted from the statute to make sure that the citizens are protected. Right now, these folks are just doing whatever they want to do. Where is the accountability? Where is it? And I contend that, we've opened up all of these issues, from encrypted software to algorithms to ownership to monetization, where the monetization in a blockchain goes. Now we're talking about, well, who got the money? Who got paid campaign contributions to cast a friendly vote for something that we knew absolutely nothing about. Now we do have legislators who are stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, you know what, I made a mistake. I should have thought this through, or I should have inquired more. I was misled. I thought it was a data processing plant, something like we've already had in this state for years and years and years. That's not what this is. And so like I said in the very beginning, bad news doesn't get better with age. And I don't care who you are in the elected official hierarchy of this state. You passed a law in 851 that gave overwhelming, egregious benefits to an industry that you didn't know anything about, that has all sort of negative connotations to it, from national security interests to natural resource protection and competition with private citizens in an inordinate way. It's time to fix this. Repeal 851. Just repeal it. And then have a moratorium on the development of any more crypto mines in this state. The folks who or you've proven that own crypto mines that are from countries that are on the watch list, the sanctions watch list, they have to divest themselves, shut down, whatever. They'd have to have an immediate shutdown. And anybody that's outside compliance on ADEQ regulations or other state regulations, whether it be agricultural or otherwise, shut them down. Shut them down. You would shut anybody else down.
Well, Mr. Bogard, thank you so much for joining us. We certainly hope that the legislators heed this advice. This is something that, like I said, it's definitely contrary to a stance that we normally take here at Conduit. But this is, like you said, I think that Act 851 was done in haste and something that needs to be repealed and a moratorium put in place. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just one last thing. I believe that the integrity of the legislature as a whole,
yes,
is at stake here.
Yeah.
This is an important issue, and the way that we deal with this as a state is going to be a reflection of what happens in the future. And it certainly has to be addressed in an integral way. And I would encourage every legislator, every elected official, constitutionally elected official, do what's right here. repeal 851, put a thorough investigative study together, and then go forward from that point with the normal discourse where private citizens can express themselves and come to the right conclusions, because we have the wrong conclusion here now, and it's hurting our state, and it's causing damage to individual people who are not even parties to any of this, and this has got to stop. Got to stop.
Thank you so much. Hope that you join us on Conduit again soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.